this podcast is like a 0 to 1 mindset shift because you are trying to throw out potentially a system that you went through. It worked for you in some capacity, like in your brain. You got all these happy, ooey gooey nostalgia memories, and you're asking people to be like, no.
There's a lot of fear inside the traditional system, and he said it. Failure is looked upon as, ooh, that's bad, and then never do that again. But we all know that perfection is the killer of progress.
University system is going away as we know it now, and higher ed will be completely different.
That you're going to lose your job as an educator. In order to do that, you need that high level engagement and accountability, and humans have to do that.
You're listening to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Hostrauser and Alli Dahl.
Welcome back to the Disrupt Education Podcast. I got Alli Dahl. I'm Peter Hostrauser. We're coming off an amazing, interesting, out of the box series. Before we go into that, it is we are almost into February soon. So how you doing, Alli? How's 26 being bold with you?
It is bolding. If you got a week to process this series, well, maybe, if you listened to it yesterday and lucky you, this episode is now out. Or if, okay, we all watch probably shows on Netflix where they have a first part or and then you have to or they drop some episodes. They don't drop them all anymore, which is so infuriating.
Yeah.
But I sometimes wait until they're all out so that I don't have to I can binge them all.
Right.
So if you were smart, you probably did that. Then you wanted to hear this one and not wait a week. But if you did have to wait a week, your mind is probably still spinning because this series is disrupting education in ways I have never thought about or explored. And I cannot be the only one that is wanting to shake Jeremy at times and be like, how? Why? It makes sense when you go through it, but at first there was a very visceral reaction to what he's proposing.
Yeah.
And I just want to honor that because I had it. I will just say, I don't want to be misquoted. I don't want to be misquoted here, but what I'm saying is my reaction felt like the first time somebody talked to me about maybe the earth is flat. I'm not saying, I'm making no stance about what the shape of the earth is or is not. But if you've ever gotten into a conversation with someone in that vein, then you have had a reaction. And that's how I felt when Jeremy first was talking about this and I was learning about career accelerators and what pega6 is. I was like, I don't know about that. I do not know about that. And it's interesting because that, of course, for us is podcast, disrupt education podcast gold. Because you cannot disrupt education if you're just well, let's just talk about all the safe topics and not question anything.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Alli said the earth was flat, huh? Okay. I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. That's a big no. I may even have to edit that out. No, I won't. Yeah, you're right. The first thing that I want to talk about is that reaction versus response, right? And inside, when you start talking about college and is it right? Is it wrong? There's a ton of emotions. That first episode will bring out a lot of emotions. And because it's something that we knew, but it has changed. Even between the time that I went and you went, Alli, it has changed, and now it's changing even faster, and that's extremely hard to comprehend. And when I first started this podcast, everybody was like, "You're anti-college, right?" And I will say, even to today, I'm not anti-college, right? I'm just not. I do think it has its place. I do understand like what Jeremy was saying about it being a great place to research and different things like that. I do think that if people have the money and the time and they want to spend it, and it's a great place to grow up, to be a human, to kind of grow into who you are, but it's not the best place to go into the workforce. And so as we were going through that first piece, it's hard to see it as a business, but it is a business, right? And I think it gets icky sometimes for a lot of our listeners when academics and business collide, right? And then it's like, oh, it's kind of like sports betting and on, games. Is it going to adjust the game? Are people going to, throw the game on purpose? Is there too much money involved in these things? So yeah, I think with anything, there's those types of conversations and such. But I forced myself to kind of step back and just try to listen. And
Mhm.
if you know, like I am kind of a funny guy, Allie. I am. I have some good jokes, but I also use my humor. I'm just going to be extremely authentic here. Like I use my humor to mask some like tension. So you'll see that throughout the series. So if you go back, I kind of do that. My wife has totally called me out on that several times. And I'm uncomfortable, but I love that because it's different thinking. I mean, and that's the way that you come into a year boldly,
Mhm.
and you have to be bold enough to disrupt something that maybe is not serving many people.
This
And
podcast wouldn't exist
yeah,
if education was flawless and market like ready and perfect product and all of
right.
these things. I what I got out of the one of the main things I got out of going on this learning journey is that the market determines the need. Like
Hmm.
I feel like I got a maybe not like a true MBA, but like I'm on my way, right?
Yeah.
Like learning from Jeremy and just the way his mind thinks, it's different. And I there's two things. Like when I would teach chemistry and I would explain kind of the history and development of the atomic theory that we are at today. Like you got to kind of go back and be like, well, what did people think before that and before that and before that? And it's weird and like
Hmm.
and it evolved over time. But like some of the experiments that we spent like 10 minutes talking about in class took some of these innovators 2 years of staring at data that didn't make sense in their brain in order to come up with a theory and a model that fit the data because they thought it was going to go one way and it didn't. And
Hmm.
I try to impress upon that. And this was even, 5 years ago, like which the world is moving even faster now. I want a student to think about 2 years of your life looking over data to draw a conclusion. Like Einstein spent, I don't even know, decades coming up with some of his theories that have now been proven. Like the Jeremys of the world are people who they dive really deeply into topics that other people think about, and then it's just like the thought is gone. Like he put this on a shelf and has been thinking about it for 15 years. Like that's not for everybody.
Right.
And that's where it's interesting because like his business background and then like the innovation of like and looking at what the market needs and what like all of that experience that he is bringing, he's been thinking about this for years and looking at the world in a totally different way. Me and you don't in the
Hmm.
box of education. He's outside of the box of education. And I think there's such an opportunity right now in education for disruptors like Jeremy. And he says it multiple times in the series. Like, we want other people to
Hmm.
build this out. Like, this is the model we believe at pega6 is going to disrupt higher ed.
Hmm.
And he welcomes other people doing the model in
Yeah.
order for what he believes in. And like, that's all of that is like, it's just a totally different approach to education
Yeah.
that I've never heard of. And it was really good. It's pop quiz time. What is your favorite part of the university system?
Is it A, 4 years spent learning nothing of pragmatic value? B, the crippling amounts of debt? C, the fact that graduates can no longer get jobs? Or D, burn it all down and build something better in its place?
If you answered D, burn it all down and build something better in its place, then you should talk to pega6.
A superior alternative to college, pega6 is 1 year, $15,000, entirely career focused, and 100% experiential. And students graduate as AI first, entry plus employees with the skills of a second or third year employee from day one on their first jobs.
pega6 isn't a university, a boot camp, or an apprenticeship. It's something altogether different. It's higher ed for the AI age.
If you're an employee interested in hiring a pega6 grad or a high school that would just like to learn more about your students using pega6, go to pega6.com/DEP to learn more. Deep Work is a book. I don't know if you've ever read Deep Work. I can't remember who the author is. But that's what this entire, like, we just got a kind of the surface of the deep work that Jeremy and his co-founders are doing with this. I think again, like as you're going through this, I keep trying to attach the worldview change to my world. Like, right, it's constructivism. You're trying to build onto, okay, what do I know? This is interesting, and I'm trying to build it. And I will have to go back probably two or three times in these podcasts just to kind of pack that in. But I will say, okay, so a lot of the things, let's go to just last week's episode when we were talking about the model and what is a Pegasus and the way that they're built. I really like this, because as educators, the way that are built, we can argue about like college and the relevance and how it can't change and everything like that. That's fine. Like, let's put that aside. But how the students are built. It's interesting because as an internship coordinator, I get to see and work with students who are just like seeds of this
Mm.
type of learning, right? It's experiential. It's not quite self-contained, but the kids are learning in experiences. And what they are bouncing back is what the system taught them. And that's what's interesting to me because as Jeremy was talking about, this experiential learning and how it's different from apprenticeships and boot camps and things like that, I see the result of what a system does, the indecisiveness of our students now, right? In a high school level. I see that when there is friction, there is fear, right? And I also see when there is failure, students don't understand it, and they are afraid of failing. So there's a lot of fear inside the traditional system, and he said it. Failure is looked upon as, ooh, that's bad, and then never do that again. But we all know that perfection is the killer of progress, right? So when we're looking at like when I'm listening to him and listening how this is done, and I'm very student centric, right? So I'm looking at
Mm-hmm.
this 19-year-old hypothetical that's going into an IT path or something like that. The continuous failure is something that I am learning because our IT interns are coming back and saying, well, I did the code there was a failure in it. And by the way, the code was messy, just like Jeremy said. It is, and they're working for companies.
Mhm.
And he did it 4 different times and it kept bouncing back. The young person started questioning themselves. But that's the professional world. That's what happens. So these
Mhm.
little tidbits that I'm hearing Jeremy say as he's going through the way that these things are built, um, I'm seeing it, and that's exciting to me. That's very exciting to me because when your student, they're not intentionally telling me, "Hey, this is what pega6 is doing." I mean, my kids probably have no idea what it is, but you see it, and then it starts to make sense. So as an educator out there, I want you to just, if you go back into any moment in the podcast and really just to press pause and think about either your own kids if you have them, or students or learners, or even your own experiences, and try to find some sort of synergy. The whole thing doesn't need to make sense, but you'll start to dig in and make sense on this. So yeah, that's what I was just thinking. And there's so many other brilliant pieces, but yeah, what do you think there?
The 0 to 1
Mhm.
idea is really critical for, his model
Mhm.
of getting someone basically, they don't want to do the job to, they know how to do the job,
Yeah.
getting you through that first year. Like this podcast is like a 0 to 1 mindset shift because you are trying to throw out potentially, most likely, a system that you went through. It worked for you in some capacity, like in your brain, you got all these happy, ooey gooey nostalgia memories, and you do it like you're asking people to be like, no, it's go that he's trying to slay that model, right? Like
Mhm.
it's a haul to get yourself from 0 to 1 mindset shift wise. And I was, as he kept saying that 0 to 1 principle, I was thinking about the day I decided I'm going to do a pull up. I was in my late 20s.
Mhm.
Um, and I had just run my second marathon. And I was like, I was feeling like this high from, man, I just did my second marathon. Like I confirmed I could do it again. And it was like almost 10 years later. And I, I was like at the peak feeling like I am so athletic and like in this great shape and everything. And I don't know why, but like I was working out with a friend and she was like, "Can you do a pull up?" And I was like, "I probably can do a pull up." And I couldn't move my body an inch. I was at zero. Like I had
Mhm.
no upper body strength because I didn't weight train. I
Mhm.
ran. I was cardiovascularly very healthy.
Yeah.
And I realized like this enormous gap in my health that I
Mm.
was not like I didn't even realize.
Mhm.
And to go from 0 pull-ups to 1 pull-up took almost 2 years
Wow.
of effort. For a female, it's extremely difficult. Like we
Mhm.
can outperform men on like lower body exercises typically like over time, like if you scale it for like
Mhm.
weight and how much you can move and everything. And men tend to excel an upper body movement. So it's a big ask to have a female who
Mhm.
didn't have a ton of like weight training experience in your late 20s, and it only gets harder as you get older to get a pull up. I was so determined. I mean,
Mhm.
it was this huge journey, a huge overhaul. And once I got it, incredible, amazing, chef's kiss. I can still do pull ups, but to go from 1 to 2 took like a month.
Yeah.
And to go from then it was like, and then it was 2 to 4.
Mhm.
And then it was like it wasn't a linear like thing. And so it was interesting this journey of 0 to 1 for taking a student in K through 12 and making them employable
Yeah.
in a verticalization model that he's talking about is a very real thing. And it is a big haul to go from 0 to 1. And it's a big haul to go from 0 to 1 in your mindset. So it's like we want to honor all of those things on the podcast. Like it's work what Jeremy's doing. It's work to consider what Jeremy's doing. It's like
Yeah.
it's a mind shift mindset shift for
Hmm.
education as a whole to like get behind this. I mean, he has his plan, like, and he's very bold in what he says. He's like, I might not live to see it, but like the university system is going away as we know it now,
Hmm.
and higher ed will be completely different. And like that is a haul mentally. You know, maybe 10 years from now, Peter, we'll look back and we'll be like, it wasn't that hard. But it feels like it is right now because we're at
Hmm.
zero. Maybe Jeremy got me and you to point two, but we're not at one yet.
Hmm.
Like, and our listeners probably aren't. And so, like, but that principle is really critical to like everything that he's talking about. And it comes in many different ways in our lives, not just like in like as a in your work, which it definitely applies. Being a first year teacher versus second year teacher
Oh
is a
yeah.
completely different ball game.
Yeah. Totally.
Completely.
Yeah, that's interesting because yeah, I do think about that because every year, there's newer educators coming in and I know like my 0 to 1 year as an educator, right? We both do, right? And you go back to that year and there was so much like in your face, I had no idea almost to a daily basis. So if you can kind of take that as an educator and put that into any sort of pathway, right? Um, I do remember when I worked for a corporation or even like as an entrepreneur, you go in and man, even this last year when I came into this position for the first time, I mean, I remember when you're walking around the school and you're just like, how am I going to remember all this? And now it's just nothing. It is what it is. It's those things. So that part really, really makes sense I and people often say, once you get to your first million, the second million's easier, right? And then the third million. So it's the same with like your pull-up story. And by the way, though, getting to it is the most difficult. I really like that analogy because it hurts. And I think another space where people in education who are just hell-bent on keeping the status quo, and I don't want to speak for people, so if you have comments or whatever, just, send them our way. But like when somebody says, workforce engineering, that can give a lot of people like, oh, we saw it on some of our own posts on LinkedIn. Like, are
Mm-hmm.
you just creating like a workforce and they're just going nowhere and that's all you're doing and everything is just for work and the man and somebody else is making money and all these different things. But I hear that and I get that, right? There's flaws in, all kinds of economic systems. But I will say, I can tell you that the students that I know get this way of learning on their own, and there's a small portion of our population that is able to motivate and to put themselves into situations where they're going right down the line. They're going through experiential learning on their own. They know that failing is going to fix things fast. That trust me, there is a small population of people who get this right away, and every one of them that I've talked to in my last 23 years in the system are as free as you can be and not just monetarily, like they understand they can pivot, they can move, they get those durable skills, they have taught themselves that through experiences and they've created a network. So I you know it's interesting to me that people will there is people here, and I think one of the things that educators are most afraid of in this like workforce engineering and this AI world and all these different things is that you're going to lose your job as an educator. But if you heard what Jeremy said in there, that in order to move people. I wrote it down. I'm going back into my notes because, by the way, you should all take notes on our podcast. But in order to do that, you need that high level engagement and accountability, and humans have to do that. Like there is, no, I mean, and that was an amazing thing because if you have high accountability or high engagement and accountability with somebody there coaching you, and we've heard the coaching model before in Leaf Lab, right? Like Simon and Jeff, um, and 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 that to me is so important because we're seeing it as we're adjusting our internship program as well. So we're adjusting different ways that we're meeting with students and stuff. It's that balance. Like we got to let them go, we got to bring them in, we got to let them go, and it's just like that in life. So I hear the people who are going to be angry about workforce engineering. That
Yeah.
term is going to drive people nuts, right? We're just creating well, why are we just listening to the market and that and that? Well, I mean, look, we've got lights on, staring at a computer. I've got to eat food. You got to have, home and these things. And it's just the way it is. You got to pay the bills. So
Mm.
how are we going to do that? But it is freeing. I'm telling you, it is freeing. It's better than paying a lot of money, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I I mean I if I put on a parent hat and I'm like I have an option of a one year 15K career accelerator versus potential, even the 1 year price difference of like 15 versus maybe 50K
Hmm.
or 30K. Like, I mean, even if it's half the cost and you potentially guaranteed a job, who cares if you like don't want to do that job forever? You're skilled up. The the if I'm looking at it strictly from like a parent like student perspective, it's very student centric
Hmm.
in a pathway that could get someone real skills in a very seeable future, like for like you could see the finish line in 1 year. And to back up what you're saying about like the in person and the accountability, I have always said there is magic that happens when you do something in real time.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, our listeners don't get to experience the magic of like recording a podcast in real time because it really there is like a real sense of like joy that you
Hmm.
and I have doing
Yeah.
this. We couldn't do it unless we're doing it in real time. Like the thoughts that we have and how we approach it's happening live, people. Like there of course there's edits, but it's very I will say this podcast is very minimally like we don't cut stuff out. It's not
Right.
like, oh, we just go on this ramble and then like, oh, that didn't make the podcast. Like you're getting probably, I don't know, 95+% of
Hmm.
what is recorded because it's this awesome sauce that happens
Yeah.
if you let the flow happen. I was like just reading this, there's this entrepreneur and he talks about like flow states and how artists get flow states right and like musicians and everything and like top musicians they really go through a like a ritual and a routine and then there's like this abandonment of like you kind of rip it up and you get in the moment and you're just playing and feeling, what you're doing. And the way you and I podcast feels that way a
Hmm.
lot of the time. Like our best podcasts always feel like, oh, we were really in the flow of it because it's that in real time like learning. It's
Hmm.
like even listening to a podcast, I think, that ear space is it's just a different mechanism to take stuff in our brains than like reading it or watching it. I mean, you can watch this as well,
Hmm.
but nothing replicates the doing something in real time.
Yeah.
Uh, I can show you the mechanics of like doing different lab stuff in a chemistry lab, like over a screen, but until you are holding the equipment and like trying to make the measurements and read the tools and everything, you will not upskill yourself. Like I'm just as an expert unconsciously doing all the things that you don't know how to do because you've never held the tools or done the stuff. And like the point of the 0 to 1 is so real because I think about
Mhm.
first year chem students versus AP or like college level chem students, like just they've been in the lab.
Mhm.
They've they've upskilled so much in a year, almost a
Mhm.
year, 9 months of a class. It's wild. I'm actually tutoring someone right now who is in college chemistry and she's never taken chemistry before. And it's rough because the professor has all of these assumptions,
Yeah.
unbeknownst to her, of things you should have memorized and the vocabulary and the skills you should have learned in a year one
Mhm.
S that is basically it's a year two class. She's learning years 1 and 2 actually in a semester. So it's four times condensed. It's wild. She's doing it. She's crushing it. But
Mhm.
it's a lift.
Yeah.
It's a real lift. But we do it in real time. The coaching is in real time. I cannot, if I could replicate myself and tutor more students in real time if I had unlimited time, oh man, I could do it all day, every day. I love it. But it's not scalable.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that replaces it. Whenever a kid tutors with me, they literally are like, well, why didn't they just say this? And like they just rushed through it. I'm like, because I'm really doing it with you in real time, like, and what you need
Mhm.
right now to understand this concept is not it's not what you think it is. It's actually all these other things. But that's an expert. Like Jeremy's talking about this from an expert lens, and like you and I aren't experts in this
Right.
career accelerator, workforce engineering, AI first model. Like that's not our expertise. So it's like it. He's not a one. I don't know what level he's on, but like
100.
not the level we're on or our listeners are on.
Yeah. No, yeah, I do like that analogy though of the chemistry student because I really want to bring that into like kind of traditional educational speak. Not that you're, traditionally educating, but like it is real time, right? And as let's just say like chemistry changed, like the entire piece of chemistry changed. The elements they all shuffled up, or I don't know, which business does, right? And all of a
Yeah.
sudden the market changes. And so that flow, that real time then you would change the way that you would tutor. Well, in layman's terms, that's really what pega6 is. It's changing what certain pathways and businesses want. The other thing that I think is really genius about this is, man, when you said, and I'm gonna try to do this now, man, this gave me a great idea, even in high school, because I know we're not going to do it at the same level as this, but show me what a second level, a second year person's resume or what they look like, what they can do. That is so genius. And if you guys take anything from what Jeremy is doing and want to try to maybe do that in your classroom or even see more, he's got blogs and stuff on pega6.com, but like that is something like what like you talk to a student in high school and you're like in a pathway. That's what I want to start talking to business now and say, what does this perfect thing look like for you? And then, we're not going to be agile enough, especially in a public school, to do everything, but we can start planting those seeds. And I think that was something that was such a bold statement and a bold way to do things. I really, really like that because, and the other thing that somehow I just thrive in chaos. Like I like to push myself in different ways. Maybe not. I will tell you, I'm not a runner, so kudos to you for doing a marathon. But like in high school, he said the dual track thing. If he's, I think it was on the second or maybe the first episode of this series, is where parents now want work skills and college. And I'm in that
Mhm.
sweet spot. like I get to be in that sweet spot, but I know it's going to be difficult for somebody who might be an English teacher or a math teacher. You have to start thinking differently, and it's interrupting and disturbing kind of a nice area that you've been in, right? Because I
Mhm.
mean, let's be honest, right? Like algebra really hasn't changed in the last 50, 80 years or whenever years, I don't know,
Same
right?
with them.
But like adapting it now and putting more of workforce and those skills into it, I think that's where we're going in the secondary part. And then what Jeremy is doing in pega6 is taking that just off the charts, right? And just
Yeah.
extremely scaling that. So I thought that was interesting too, where yeah, he's not wrong. I mean, we see the numbers of what's coming into our CTE programs, we see the numbers of that. And I think that's, I'm just going to say it. I think that's why things like U Science is very important because you got to know what you're good at, and you also got to know what you're interested in, and then you put those two and then you put them into a program like pega6 or something like that where you have that pre-knowledge coming in, right?
Oh yeah.
Things start to make sense faster. You find yourself faster. Businesses understand it better, and at the end, I mean, this is all about freedom and clarity. I mean, to me, that's what it's all about. So, yeah, it's the agile, adapted, part where our students aren't there yet, in high
Mhm.
school or in middle school, and it affects decision making. Students will freeze, right?
Mhm.
They don't want to fail still. And failure is not final. And to me, that's, I think, the biggest challenge that we have in a K through 12 system is really trying to figure out different ways that failure can be brought into the curriculum. And it is in incubator programs and some different programs, but how can we do it to make it a learning piece to prepare our students? Look, if they go to college and they're prepared to do something like pega6, I think that's a win, right? I mean, fine, right? But then you have this other option, this career accelerator, that they're ready to go into. So it kind of changes preparedness for the secondary education, which we
Well, he
kind
said
of
that they would have a ripple effect backwards and
exactly.
in
Yep.
the supply chain model.
Right.
I asked him that and I think it was an episode too. I was like, how does this then backtrack to high schools?
Yeah.
Honestly, this whole shift though, like does come, and we have said this before on the podcast about like who is going to be the most adaptable in education. It's actually like small school districts that
Hmm.
are not bloated or like have multiple high schools and they've got a huge hierarchy on like I know you're a coordinator, but coordinators
Hmm.
and like district staff and like if there's a huge there's a lot of people you have to go through in order for something to change,
Right.
right? Versus like I've taught in different school districts where the principal can, if he wants a program or he wants something, like it could happen like tomorrow.
Hmm.
And like
Yep.
I'm thinking Jason Walkie with his programs, like it's a small private high school. They have a ton of flexibility. They're doing super innovative things for the secondary level. And like if you're even in a program, like I mean you have some leeway in your program that other programs I'm sure wish they had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um and it's like you have to stay focused on the key features. He
Hmm.
talked about like the innovator's dilemma, I think is the
Hmm.
book.
Yep. Hmm.
And and so that's the opportunity for education is how can you stay limber and agile? How can you get rid of the bloat, so to speak, of because it will you be difficult to change. He had this great example of like, you know, you can't change. And so then you come up with all of the like excuses of why you can't change and you just like
Right.
make it work. It's like I'm like, I have so been there. Like I have gone down that exact chain of thinking,
Hmm.
and it is freeing to think about models that are adaptable and agile. And oh, you said you like chaos. It's one of the things he talks about, the elements of an agile program. It's the strategic use of intentional chaos.
Yeah,
That's
right.
an interesting, that is an interesting phrase.
That is.
And that's not that is not the vocabulary you hear in, in education. Just not.
Yeah, maybe it was like when I was growing up in our basement, my dad was a football coach, and we had this. He used to do what do they call them? Montages, or what, the collages, where he cut out pictures, and then you used to paste them, and then you do
Yeah,
like the glue over them. Yeah, I'm that old. Now
I
you can
know
do them
those.
digitally. But he had a football one, and I remember there was a word, two words in there. It was controlled chaos, and that was like the NFL back in like the 70s and 80s and stuff. And it really stuck with me. I don't know why. I was just trying to, because when you realize what those words mean, and then as you're growing up, you're like, well, that doesn't make sense, but it kind of makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. So I feel that's where we are. But if you want to be an innovative or disruptive teacher, educator, practitioner, coach, you've got a lot to learn in these last three episodes. I know I have like 5 pages of notes. It gets you thinking differently, even if you don't like completely agree with everything any of our guests say. Like take something from it. And I got to tell you, I took a lot from Jeremy. I mean, and I know we're gonna find him later this year, as we continue to be bold, because I totally want to see this thing launched. I want to see how this works, and
Any
and
more
and seeing it.
questions?
Yeah, yeah, more questions. Yeah, 100%, 100%. So, but yeah, coming up this year, we've got a lot. And just what a great way to start it. Just like I thank you for coming up with the bold statement. Let's just come out bold. Let's ruffle some feathers. That's to your chickens there, by the way.
Oh, my sweet chickens.
And we got, yes. So we will. We got to get the chickens in too. I just want to like pet one of the chickens somehow. I don't know.
Just to clarify for everyone,
Yeah.
I have chickens, backyard chickens, but most people don't know, or like they don't know anything about chickens, let
Yeah.
alone that they are super affectionate, cuddly animals. If they are raised in an environment where they are loved and held,
Hmm.
and all of those things. So I call them, and I'm not, I didn't come up with this, but they are a pet with breakfast. You get breakfast and you get a pet, and they really are. So I as I prep for podcasts, one of my routines, doesn't matter what the weather's like outside, because I have a chicken run that I can sit in, is I go and cuddle my chickens.
Hmm.
It's literally part of my podcast prep, is I
Yeah.
sit out there and I hold them, and have some very cute chickens that love cuddles, and they love to be held. And so if you don't know about chickens, if you want to talk chickens, I'm all ears. I call Instagram Chick Instagram, because I basically, my feed is all stuff about chickens.
I love it.
And yeah,
Well, I
that's what we're
think
talking.
it's just it really is like that's learning though. I mean, right? Like, I don't know, you didn't know much about chickens, and then you have them, and now, yeah, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
it's
not
a
going to
whole
say
thing.
everybody
I'm a
needs
chicken
chickens.
whisperer.
Yeah.
Chicken whisperer now, but like
Yes.
I was not like 8 months ago. I was steep the
That's
learning curve.
true.
I'm not at one yet. I haven't had them a year, but I am
Yeah.
not at zero. I
Yeah.
am not at zero with the chickens.
Hmm.
So, but not at one.
Yeah,
Point
I mean, we
eight.
can parallel this with anything, right? I love that you have, that as part of your, traditional thing that's kind of calming. Me, you don't want to know what I'm doing. I'm just running around here like crazy, grabbing a cold piece of pizza, grabbing a couple. I get my water bottles. I got like three of them up here, and I'm just like, oh, wow, I gotta turn on the light. Oh my gosh, it's 2 minutes till we. So I hope I don't look too raggedy coming into this. But look, man, we are 1 month into 0 to 1 in 26. This year, we're going to encourage everybody to really take deep dives, be bold, teach differently, hire differently, build differently, learn differently, because the future of education is being written right now, and make sure like you're part of that story. 26 is going to be is already starting out to be a big year, and it's only going to get even more interesting. There are a lot of things changing in education, and honestly, like, you are good enough as a practitioner. You are good enough as somebody who is in this to help others learn and learn yourself. So let's make it a ride. Let's make it a ride. So as we go into February, want to thank you all. Again, want to thank Jeremy for the last 3 episodes. If you haven't heard them, go back and listen to those. Your head will spin. You may need an aspirin every once in a while, but it is so good, so good. And we're gonna keep going. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Please share this out. I'm telling you, we've got some great guests. We've got great people coming up. Very, very interesting. Each year we learn more, and you never know. We might get that gear out that Alli's wearing right now. We'll see. So for Alli Dahl, I'm Peter Hostros. I want to thank you all for hanging out with us on the Disrupt Education podcast. We'll see you next week. We just wrapped our full series with Jeremy Smith and pega6, and let's be honest, it was bold, it was uncomfortable, it was very non-traditional, and yeah, we challenged the traditional college model head on. If this series made you feel a little awkward or unsure, that's okay. That tension is exactly where real change starts. The Disrupt Education podcast exists to explore different ways forward. We're not here to tell you what to think, but to help you think differently. If you don't agree with everything we discussed, that's fine. We actually want to hear where you landed. Drop your comments, join the conversation. And even if you're a little curious, head over to pega6.com/DEP and check it out, even if you want to just scratch the surface. Thank you so much for spending time with us on this powerful series. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. 2026 is just getting started, and Alli and I have an incredible lineup of education disruptors coming your way. Stay curious, stay uncomfortable. We'll see you next time.